Kia ora koutou, ko tānei tēnei aka Mama D. Vlog 3, week 2. And this time we're talking about our ako session that we had with Travis and our special guest, Jace Meyer. Our ako session started with our quiz, which cemented our learnings from last week about fixed mindsets and growth mindsets, as you may have already seen in my other vlog, and the subconscious and the conscious mind and the differences that they have in our lives. Fortunate enough to listen to Jace as she spoke her story to us. So Jace comes from Turtle Island, which is known today as Canada. She's a mum, she's an entrepreneur, she is an artist, and Jace is a trained elementary teacher. Why is she on the pathway that she's on? Well, as Jace grew up, identifying with only one part of her culture. It wasn't until her grandmother was passing away that her grandmother told the family that they were actually First Nation heritage. She thought that if she kept that side of their culture a secret, that they will not follow in the footsteps of their ancestors. There is a lot of historical trauma that has happened to the First Nations people. So the colonizers of Canada are French and English, and she actually identifies as a Métis. Now Métis is I hope I'm getting that right, is a person in the First Nations who comes from both a colonizer and a non-colonizer, so the Indigenous people. A Métis is also known as a half-breed, and I did a little bit of research with Jace, and it took her a little bit of time to get over that word and not have that as a trigger for creating more intergenerational trauma through those words. Now I believe, from what I've read, she embraces that word and uses it to empower herself and others like her. Now, the First Nations peoples are a nomadic people, and so they've always had to produce things and sell them, and that's how they made their money. So they were able to trade. So in her life, that seemed to be a natural way to go into the selling of products. So this knowledge of becoming a First Nations person came around the same time she was a teenager. Now, as a teenager, we all know that we are looking for something to hang on to. So at this time in her life, she was able to find her identity and stand in that. And she has used this as a platform for a driving force for entrepreneurs in Indigenous cultures to get ahead in this world. Now, Jace is a trained teacher, and I'm going to say educator because she doesn't just teach, she educates. And one of the big takeaways for me was that she finds that wealth isn't money, but wealth is time. Time that she can spend with her family, time she can spend helping somebody else out of that fixed mindset of I can't do it. Wealth is a resource that helps her do this. It's not quite a mindset that the First Nations people have been raised with. So she is about change and breaking those limiting beliefs and helping others to do the same, to live in their greatness. So throughout her life and in her journey, she's realized that the people that she deals with, so they don't fear failure, they fear success. And that can be a powerful mind changer. Because if I succeed, what's going to happen then? Maybe they're going to call me greedy or whatever. But what Jace is doing to impart on these people is that once they have the wealth and the money that they can keep in the bank, that can be used for good. They can put that back into a service to help other people. The three things that I got out of that: family, community, and back to the whenua. The Indigenous people can give back when they've got resources to do so. The issue with a lot of people in the areas that she lives in is that they are very tech illiterate. So meaning that 75% of the Indigenous First Nations people have never seen a computer, have never held a smartphone, don't even know what one looks like, and that they've never been on the internet. So these are things that to us here in New Zealand are readily available. So how does she go about fixing this? Well, Jace used to work for Shopify. Now Shopify back in the day was a technology company, and she put in her application and they wanted her to teach technology. Because that wasn't her forte, she came back with another contract. She wanted to build out the employee training and education sector of their company. Now there was 1,500 employees when she started, and when she left the company a few years later, there was 6,500. So she was able to grow their company through education. When Jace left the company, she left the company because she realised that her principles and her values had changed and no longer aligned with those of Shopify. What were happening to her Indigenous people? Where were they in all of this? How were they going to go about doing this? I've already told you that they're very illiterate when it comes to technology. So how was this going to help her people? She wanted a way for her people to take the products that they were building and creating and sell for themselves. Because what was happening is that the person over here, he would sell for his wooden statue for 300. Yet taking it to market was 3,000. They would get for $3,000. Now the person who made it didn't see that money. So she was thinking, something's missing in their lives. And it was her incentives to fill in that gap, create a platform for them. She became a thorn in other people's sides. Jace asked the hard questions. She put herself in situations where she wasn't always welcome, but still she needed to be in these spaces in order to get the information she needed in order to have a voice for her Indigenous peoples. They could sell their products and keep the money so that they have wealth, so that they could put that in the bank. Then they could rinse and repeat their process with the next person. So what is Jace up to now? She is creating her own platform of technology so that she can give Shopify a run for their money. Currently, Jace is also on the First Nations Technology Council. Their students are guided in a business startup journey and the outcome, successful and confident entrepreneur. So this is the council that she currently sits on. They're also about righting the wrongs of their ancestors. These people are about giving a platform where the Indigenous people can share their wisdom, their knowledge, their mātauranga, which is knowledge, with the next generation. There was a sentence she used. So the sentence is, if I lift others, I lift me. So in closing of this particular takeaways for me at this time. I found that to be very empowering, because if I lift others, I lift me. If I lift you to be the best that you can be, and you lift somebody to be the best that they can be, and then so on and so forth, then in the end, I've elevated myself to feel good about myself, because I've been able to help somebody else. And we all grow together. When we share, we grow, right? And so going back to what I said earlier, wealth is time. I help you, and you can help someone else. That puts money in my pocket, puts money in your pocket, and allows us to help the next person, whatever that might look like. And I just want to say how grateful I am to be here in New Zealand, that even though we have historical trauma in our DNA, it is nowhere near what they've had to put up with. We have the internet, this for example, a phone, and we haven't had to deal with being wiped out by people who don't like the colour of our skin. They're not trying to breed us out. So, in the business sense, I guess, what have I got to lose but to give it a go? So, once again, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. I'm trying to change that for my family, for your family, and for those yet to come.